The first scream wasn't hers. It was her dog's, sharp, startled, echoing across the school courtyard like a desperate alarm no one seemed ready to answer. The second sound was the metallic crash of her wheelchair as it tilted sideways after being shoved by hands that didn't know compassion, didn't know restraint, didn't know the pain they were about to cause. And the third sound was silence. Heavy, cruel silence. Everyone watched, but no one moved. That was how the first morning at Ridgeway Preparatory began for 14-year-old Marin Solis, a girl with a quiet smile, resilient eyes, a worn-out service dog named Togo, and a wheelchair that had carried more courage than most kids standing on 2 feet. If you believe kindness still matters, if you believe second chances can change someone's life, then please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness Corner. Your support helps stories like this reach hearts that need them. The sun sat high in the sky that day, warm and indifferent, pouring bright light over everything except Marin's heart. She had hoped this school would be a new chapter, a place where she could blend in, focus on her rehabilitation, and maybe feel normal again after the accident that took her ability to walk. But the wealthy teenagers of Ridgeway Prep weren't interested in normal. They were interested in entertainment, especially when it came wrapped in vulnerability. Leading them was Bria Lawton, the principal's daughter, tall with a sharp jawline and a personality polished like a diamond but just as cold. Marin's wheelchair, her service dog, her quietness, all of it made her an easy target for someone who needed to prove she had control over everything around her. Marin tried her best to ignore the eyes piercing her like judgmental arrows. She rolled through the courtyard with Togo trotting loyally beside her, his golden fur glowing in the sunshine as if trying to shield her with warm light. She kept her head down, hoping invisibility could be a shield, but the world had its own plans. Bria stepped right in front of her, flanked by 2 privileged shadows, Soren Dale, whose smug attitude was only outmatched by the price of his designer watch, and Calix Reed, a boy whose laughter always sounded just a little too loud, like he wanted the whole world to hear he wasn't the one being mocked. They circled Marin with the kind of confidence only kids protected by money and connections could possess. They made comments, not just cruel, but calculated. They mocked the stickers on her chair, the way her hands trembled slightly when pushing her wheels, the old patches sewn onto Togo's vest. Marin wished she could disappear. She wished she had the strength to push back, but fear locked her inside her own body, just as real as the wheelchair beneath her. She tried to move past them, but Bria extended a foot, halting her wheels. And then Soren nudged Togo with his shoe, first lightly, then harder. When the dog yelped, something inside Marin cracked. She leaned forward to grab Togo's harness, but Calix shoved the back of her chair, tipping it halfway over before she caught herself on the armrests. Her stomach flipped, and for a moment the world spun. Togo barked frantically as Bria stepped forward with a smirk that suggested this wasn't bullying, this was entertainment. Students around them froze in place, some recording with their phones, others whispering, none intervening. That was the moment the kick came. Soren aimed a sideways hit to the dog's ribs with the pointed tip of his shoe. Togo cried out, collapsing slightly but struggling back to his feet, desperately trying to protect the girl who needed him. The courtyard went colder than the winter air Marin remembered from the hospital windows. Her hands shook uncontrollably as she reached for Togo, pulling him close and shielding him even as tears blurred her vision. She didn't know how to defend herself. She didn't know how to fight back. She only knew she had to protect Togo, even if her body couldn't move fast enough to stop them. And then, from the silent crowd, a shadow broke forward. He wasn't a student. He wasn't a teacher. He wasn't a staff member. He was a man with broad shoulders, sun-tanned skin, and the unmistakable gait of someone who had walked through danger far more real than this courtyard. His name, though no one knew it yet, was Commander Axton Rourke, a retired Navy SEAL veteran, newly hired as Ridgeway Prep's security coordinator after moving back to his hometown to escape the memories that haunted him. He had come outside only to check the perimeter, but the moment he saw the wheelchair toppled forward, the trembling dog, and the privileged swarm circling a terrified girl, something inside him snapped into instinct. He didn't shout. He didn't bark orders. He simply stepped forward with a controlled, disciplined stride that carved the air with purpose. His presence alone was a force that parted the students like a tide retreating from a storm. His calm voice, heavy with years of leadership, landed with the same weight as a warning siren. But even without words, his eyes said everything, this stops now. As Axton reached Marin, he crouched beside her wheelchair, lifting it fully upright and gently checking her arms for injuries. His touch was steady, respectful, careful. He examined Togo next, running trained hands along the dog's ribs, ensuring nothing was broken. The dog leaned into him, sensing safety. Marin looked up with wide, tear-glazed eyes, and for the first time since arriving, she felt the faint comfort of protection. Axton stood, turning slowly toward Bria, Soren, and Calyx. His voice remained level, but every syllable carried the weight of someone who had commanded teams in places where a mistake meant not coming home. He didn't raise his tone, but the quiet severity of it was more powerful than any yell. The courtyard held its breath as he addressed them one by one, making it clear that cruelty was not strength, entitlement was not power, and fear was not leadership. And though he didn't touch them, didn't threaten them, the truth he spoke left the bullies rattled in a way they had never experienced. He escorted Marin to the nurse's office, Togo walking again with slow but assured steps. Along the way, Axton walked slightly ahead, creating a buffer between her and every student who stared. She didn't speak much, but the way her shoulders trembled told him enough. He had seen that look before, survivors trying to pretend they were fine while holding the shattered pieces of themselves together. Something inside him recognized her pain, not because he had been bullied, but because he had spent years watching injustice break innocent people in war-torn villages, people who simply wanted dignity and safety. Over the next few days, Axton made it his quiet mission to watch over Marin. Not in an obvious, embarrassing way, but with subtleness learned from years of tactical observation. He checked on Togo's healing, advised the nurse on proper care, and gently encouraged Marin's mother, Leora Solis, to file formal reports so that real change could happen. The administration resisted at first. After all, Bria was the principal's daughter, Soren's father was a major donor, and Calyx's mother sat on the school's board. But Axton stood firm. He reminded them of safety protocols, legal responsibilities, and the irreversible damage caused by ignoring abuse. And for the first time in Ridgeway Prep's history, privilege didn't shield cruelty. Marin slowly began to change in the days that followed. She arrived at school with a little less fear, a little more hope. Axton's presence gave her courage, and her classmates, seeing the consequences the bullies faced, began showing her kindness they should have shown from the start. Small moments mattered, someone offering to push open a door, someone else placing a water bowl for Togo under the shade, a student choosing to sit beside her at lunch. These gestures didn't erase the trauma, but they planted seeds of healing. Axton continued to check on her, always with a calm, grounded presence that made her feel seen without feeling pitied. She learned small details about him in quiet conversations, how he had served 15 years overseas, how he returned home to care for his aging father, how he found peace working a simple school security job after years of chaos. And he learned that Marin was not just a girl in a wheelchair, she was a talented sketch artist, a loyal dog lover, and a resilient soul who had survived a devastating car accident that took her father's life and left her paralyzed. The more he learned, the more he admired her strength. Weeks passed, and the sunshine of late autumn dipped into the gentle glow of winter mornings. One day, during lunch, Marin sat alone under the oak tree near the courtyard watching Togo nap beside her. She sketched quietly, her pencil gliding over the page. She drew the courtyard, the tree, the distant school building, and a tall figure standing with crossed arms and a watchful gaze. Axton Rourke, her unlikely guardian. When she finished the sketch, she felt something she hadn't felt in a long time, gratitude deep enough to bring tears. She found Axton near the east gate and handed him the drawing. At first, he didn't know what to say. Then his voice softened in a way she had never heard before. He told her the drawing was perfect, and that she was stronger than most people he had met in his entire life. Marin smiled, her heart warming as Togo nuzzled against her leg. If this story touches your heart, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your engagement keeps this channel alive and helps kindness spread to people who need hope today. The school eventually created new anti-bullying policies, inspired partly by Marin's story and partly by Axton's unwavering insistence on accountability. Bria, Soren, and Calyx were suspended for several weeks and assigned mandatory community service that involved working with disabled children, an experience that changed them more than any punishment could. Bria broke down one day after volunteering at a rehabilitation center. For the first time, she understood pain that wasn't her own, and it carved humility into her heart like nothing else could. Marin never asked for revenge. But healing came in unexpected ways. When she rolled into the courtyard again one bright morning, the same students who once ignored her now waved, smiled, and greeted her with warmth. She wasn't invisible anymore. She wasn't a victim. She was Marin Solis, resilient, kind, and surrounded by people who finally understood her strength. Axton continued working at Ridgeway Prep, standing as a quiet guardian for students who needed protection. And Marin, for the first time in a long time, felt her world expanding. She looked at Togo, wagging his tail, and whispered a promise to herself, that she would keep going, no matter the scars she carried. Because kindness had found her. Courage had lifted her. And hope had become her companion again. And before this story ends, here is one small request. Comment, kindness wins, if you believe every child deserves protection, love, and a safe place to grow. The sun shone gently across the courtyard as Marin rolled forward with Togo beside her, feeling lighter, stronger, and ready for whatever came next. And somewhere in the distance, Axton watched with a quiet smile, proud of the girl who had turned pain into power, and grateful that he had been there the day she needed someone the most. Because sometimes, heroes don't arrive with capes, sirens, or grand entrances. Sometimes they simply step forward at the right moment, and change a life forever.